Welcome back to the Aussie Game podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Really exciting show coming up this evening. We've got some awards to give out, our inaugural Aussie Game awards, and it's going to be exciting. Mopper, it wasn't easy to pick our award winners because it's been such a fantastic year for Australian football, but we've come to a few tough decisions and we've got some awards to announce at the end of the show.
Yeah, some great moments through the year, and look forward to sharing that with you tonight, and especially looking at some individual players and some individual awards for their great contribution to their clubs and the trophies that a lot of Australians have picked up this year, which has seen the country and individual players have great success.
Absolutely, mate. We're going to start this evening with some great news from a Socceroos perspective because Alessandro Circati returned for Parma overnight. Not only did he return to the team after a couple of months out through injury, but he took the captain's armband and they picked up a crucial win, 1-0 over Fiorentina, who are really struggling in the Serie A, but pulled them away from that relegation scrap. And what a player Circati is, and he's just going to be a generational talent, we hope, for the Socceroos, but he's showing such quality and such pedigree at a young age.
What a sign of respect that is for Circati to obviously for the club. He's obviously done a lot of work behind the scenes that we've seen through Parma while he's been off injured, but straight back into it and straight back into captaincy. And I see your note there, first Aussie to captain Parma since Vince Grella. So what a fantastic performance that is. Look, we've seen him elevate from the Socceroos performance and elevate his captaincy to the Socceroos, and now it's showing in clubland that he's shows the leadership attributes that we're all after and can all see in his potential.
I saw some outlets reporting today that it was only about 4 years ago that he was in the Perth academy setup and couldn't even get a look into the first team at Perth, and say he's 18 years old then, and what leaps and bounds he's taken since that time. And as you said, he's embedded now in the Socceroos. He's become one of our most influential and crucial players as we look ahead to the World Cup next year. And at 22 years old, took the captain's armband for the Socceroos and led the team out very well. So you can just see him being that Socceroos defence for many years to come. And there are some young players around him as well, and we do have the ability to perhaps have that rate come through, and even some of the ones that are there that old. So we should be looking at a pretty solid Socceroos lineup in the back line anyway for many years to come. And no doubt Circati, whether he takes the captain's armband or not, he's going to be a real leader in that back line.
Oh, absolutely. And their next game's against Sassuolo away from home on the 4th of January. You said the importance of that win last night just to get some breathing space. But the calibre of Circati, he is our highest Socceroo playing at the highest level out of the whole Socceroos camp. You could probably put in Boss of final, but I think Serie A would be above my pecking order to the Dutch league. And then obviously you've got some few boys in the championship. Just shows the high esteem that a lot of Australian people hold Circati, and not only us as a country, but his club that he's performing at. And we've spoken about there's been plenty of interest in him, but I think at the moment his development is on the right path, and you just got to play football. And if he's leading that club, I think the next couple of years, I think he's going to be embedded in that side.
Yeah, I think throw the Bundesliga boys in Jackson Irvine and Connor Metcalf into that mix as well. Obviously, Irvine getting the captain's armband at St. Pauli, but I think there's plenty of interest in Circati. I think it's probably a good move for him at the moment to stay at Parma at least until the off season, and maybe one of those bigger clubs might come in, pick him up in and around or post World Cup. But I think it's a good fit for him at the moment. He's one of their most influential players there at Parma. Clearly, that's the case when he's given the captain's armband at such a young age. But one of their best. And look, if he can get them to stay in Serie A this season, I think that's a pretty good job done. And who knows which kind of clubs are going to come in for him. But look, as we've seen with many Australian players, it's picking the right club and probably not going too big too quickly. So I hope he continues on that path.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Let's go for a midweek wrap now, where we've got a lot of rounds since Monday, since we last obviously publicised on our podcast. And we'll start with the appointment of Ross Aloisi. I want to get your thoughts on this one. Appointed as head coach to Zhejiang Professional, who finished 7th in China this season. Nicknamed as the Green Giants, capacity stadium of 51,000. Known for some great facilities that they've got at the club. If we look back at their table in 2023, their highest position was third. Looks like they've got a lot of attack, but defensively a little bit frail. The previous year, last year in 2024, they also finished 7th as well as this year in 7th position. So interesting thoughts on that appointment of Ross Aloisi, who's mostly spent time as an assistant manager. But most importantly, his latest appointment at Shanghai Port was assistant manager in Chinese Super League and would know the league quite well under the guidance of Kevin Muscat.
Yeah, I think Aloisi, my memory of his only other performance as a head coach was with Brisbane Roar, and he did decide to leave Brisbane Roar to take up that assistant role with Kevin Muscat. So that was obviously a choice he's made, and look, it's paid dividends for him because he's stuck it out there with Shanghai Port for a couple of seasons, and now he's got his chance. And now he gets the. I think we've seen a lot of times in the past. It's very different being an assistant coach to being the head coach, the one that's got to make the key decisions and front the media. So yeah, look, we wish Ross Aloisi all the best. He was linked to the vacant Perth job before Adam Griffiths took the role permanently. So yeah, it's a good chance for him to have another shot at the head coach position. And look, as we've seen with Kevin Muscat, it's definitely doable. And we hope that he does well with his new club, Shanghai Professional.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be absolutely preparing and ready to go for the new season. There's also been an announcement in the A-League women's competition. We've got Claire Polkinghorne's medal for the women's player of the A-League season, which I thought is very special. Claire has 169 caps for the Matildas and also capped 14 times at under 20 level. And we've seen her recently retire, and obviously some recognition for Claire Polkinghorne with the medal being announced for the A-League Women's Player of the Year.
Yeah, fantastic recognition, mate. One of the Matildas' most solid players over the last decade or so. So, yeah, well deserved for Claire Polkinghorne.
All right, let's get to some action, but unfortunately there was none. Sydney FC cancels and postponed the Auckland game. Top of the table clash this week due to the playing surface not being ready. The women's clash between Sydney FC and Brisbane Roar also postponed. Surely there could have been another ground, or are they just trying to protect that game being top of the table for the Sydney public?
Oh, it's a joke, mate. It's an absolute joke because Sydney FC are playing at Leichhardt Oval because their main home ground, Allianz Stadium, is not ready because of the drainage issues that they've been having. So they waited until the end of the winter seasons, and they've put Sydney FC out to find their other alternative home grounds, and now this has happened because of Leichhardt Oval being resurfaced and not being ready in time. So look, this wouldn't happen in other codes, and it's just sad that we have to constantly deal with this as a domestic game. And look, Simon Hill came out and said, after 20 years of the A-League, clubs should have their own facilities. And while I tend to agree with that, I also understand the counter argument that the costs involved with maintaining your own venue. But I think it's something that clubs seriously need to look at if this is going to continually happen. And look, as I said, it wouldn't happen in other codes. Yeah, look, and as you said, look, maybe why alternative grounds weren't found, like we've seen through the Australian Championship, broadcast and maybe broadcast regulations are different between the Australian Championship and the A-League, but we've seen some great products out there through the Australian Championship with the New South Wales club. So, yeah, potentially, why alternative grounds weren't found, and I find that pretty puzzling. But look, to go back to the core root of the problem, if it is the playing surface, and this is the second of Sydney's home grounds where it's not up to scratch, I think that's very, very disappointing. And yeah, I'd be asking some serious questions if I was Sydney FC.
Yeah, I think they've missed an opportunity to promote. I'm sure they want to play the top of the table in Sydney somewhere, but you're in prime time when a lot of people can attend games, and you would have got a crowd, I think, anywhere you would have taken this. And look, rugby league's in off season. There's plenty of grounds around, so I think they've just missed an opportunity and pretty much made them look a little bit unprofessional, really, that they can't take a game somewhere to play. And like you said on your points, that two grounds already, Allianz and now this one. It's not a good look for their football club and operations. But anyway, we'll leave that there and we'll move on because we've
Well,
got
I
to
just
go.
want to make one more point. I just think the timing of the announcement was really poor as well. I think this came out on about Wednesday, with the game being on Saturday. So surely they would have had an indication before that time that the ground wasn't going to be ready. And thinking of the Auckland fans that may have booked flights and accommodation to travel over, where that puts them, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think Sydney FC definitely could have got ahead of this. I think if they knew this was going to be the case and got an announcement out a bit earlier. So yeah, we'll leave that one there now.
Yeah, lose-lose situation, really, isn't it? But well said. Let's go over to Europe and look at Dutch's second division, and Roda JC are back up to fourth with Josh Nisbet getting 90 minutes in their 3-1 win. Back over the Women's Super League in the UK, we've got Arsenal women beat Crystal Palace 2-0 in the League Cup quarter-final with all three Aussies getting game time. In the other game, Sam Kerr with a double in Chelsea's big 9-1 win over Liverpool, and 90 minutes for Claire Hunt as Spurs lose 2-1 to Man U in the League Cup quarter-final action during the week. Unfortunately, some bad news out of Holland in the top division. Jordy Bosch reportedly injured again, not confirmed though, as he sits out Feyenoord's draw with Twente 1-1. So try to get some news on this, but once again, with his previous injury, it's very difficult to get information about this. So we wish Jordy Bosch all the best, and hopefully it's only minor. Midweek, we had a big game in Scotland. Man of the match performance, Cam Devlin. Wasn't this a highlight as Hearts beat Rangers 2-1? Unfortunately, on that night, Celtic also beat Aberdeen 3-1, and it was only late on too, with Aberdeen going down to 10 men. But unfortunately, no Aussies were getting minutes in the Aberdeen side. So it's a bit of a disappointment for the Aussies in Aberdeen. Also, too, over in Germany, the Bundesliga, St. Pauli pick up a vital point in a 0-0 draw with Mainz. Probably could have needed to win that one. Mainz are down the bottom, but unfortunately couldn't get their win. Jackson Irvine plays 90 minutes, though, and Conor Metcalf misses out again as an unused sub, seeing his minutes very limited in the last few weeks. Back home, we had a midweek catch-up game with the Asia Champions League teams, Melbourne City and Macarthur, and it ended 1-1 with a nice free kick for Bajic. Did you see that free kick, Chief? Super
Yeah,
goal
mate.
from Bajic. Sensational. And they pinched the draw, obviously. Pretty even game. What were your thoughts on the game in midweek with Melbourne City and Macarthur? Could have gone
Yeah,
either way?
think you're right in your assessment. Yeah, pretty even game. Yeah, both kind of having to juggle, and we've seen both of them having to back up this weekend as well. So although they've had the bit of a break, it's probably still a bit of rotation for those two clubs. So I think it was probably a fair result in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And another announcement was made. Englishman Matt Wells was announced as new coach of Colorado Rapids. We've also seen some Australian players obviously play there and get picked up in the draft. For those who don't know Matt Wells, he worked under Ange at Spurs last year. So Matt Wells, welcome to Colorado in America. Sydney FC obviously had an announcement too. Their assistant coach, John Messino, joined Real Sociedad as an assistant. That's a very nice appointment over there in Real Sociedad, going very well in the La Liga. And Mitch Duke, we heard some rumours about Mitch Duke this week tying themselves with MacArthur. He leaves Macheda, and the Bulls would be very happy with this pickup. Be interesting to see where they play him, because they didn't start Sawyer on Friday night, but be interesting to see where Mitch Duke fits into that lineup, and he'll be a massive addition, especially for the Asian Champions League too.
What I'll ask you this question: what does Mixed Duke get out of this move to the MacArthur, and what did MacArthur get out of Mixed Duke?
I think the bonus is Asian Champions League. I think that's massive. I think what you seem like Beachy and all them at Melbourne City, when you're playing at home and at Asia, just puts you in that window. I think that's the benefit for Mitch Duke. I'm sure he's looking at that as a massive advantage to try to push his last state claims when the Socceroos side's announced in March. What MacArthur get? Well, they get some no doubt a high work rate, high hybrid forward that could probably play anywhere across that front line and just adds depth to their squad. I've seen this year with MacArthur. They've been solid, but they haven't really finished teams off. And I thought they'd have opportunities in games. So maybe that little bit of clinicalness that he brings to the side and a bit of experience will just make MacArthur a better squad. I definitely like MacArthur now with Mitch Duke in it. I think it's a great signing. And look, if I was Mitch Duke, I wouldn't have thought MacArthur would have been the perfect fit. But I think when you look at Asia and A-League put together, you can't go past that. And only Melbourne City offers that, and they don't need a striker. So I think that's a smart decision with Mitch Duke playing there. It just gives him more games.
As you said, Harry Sawyer didn't start in the game on Friday night, so we had Rafael Duran lead the line. So I would anticipate that Mitch Duke, once he's kind of settled in, he'll start, and then you'll have Harrison Sawyer come off the bench, either replacing him or maybe as a twin pair. That'll be a pretty ominous attack for defences to deal with as well. But Zhidong Wan's the other one on the books at MacArthur, but I'd say he's down the pecking order a bit with Mitch Duke coming in. So, yeah, I think it was a really good pickup for MacArthur. And I think, as you said, for Mitch Duke, it puts him in front of Popovic, and I think much better chance with playing with MacArthur than with his limited game time as getting at Makita Zelvia for sure.
Definitely. Well, that's the midweek wrap, Chief. Let's go to overseas, and we'll start in England, the Championship. Obviously, a few leagues obviously having a mid-season winter break, so we've got a little shortened version this week.
Your mate Derby draw 1-1 with Birmingham. Both teams ended the match with 10 men. Derby maintained their mid-table position, just looking solid there in mid-table. Callum Elder played 90 minutes in this one. For Swansea, strong game from Cameron Burgess across 90 minutes. But unfortunately, his Swansea go down 1-0 to league leaders Coventry. So Coventry are flying this season, so probably not too bad a result for Swansea. Watford pick up a huge 2-1 away win over Leicester to move up to 8th. Aaron Kunda plays 24 minutes off the bench. I saw some comments post-game that Aaron Kunda was a bit more conservative, played the percentages a bit more. So I wonder if that's some of the coaching style that's been brought up on him with this new manager that's at Watford. So I guess we'll wait and see. Lewis Miller also keeps a clean sheet in a 0-0 draw with Middlesbrough. Riley McGree obviously out, but should be available in a week or two, according to their manager, which is good news. It seems like that injury picked up a couple of weeks back isn't too bad. Also in the Championship, Hayden Matthews starts again for Portsmouth. He's really getting a good run of games. They had a 1-1 draw with QPR. 31 minutes off the bench for Adrian Segacic, and Daniel Benny again was on the bench for QPR, but he was an unused sub. You've said before, mate, about these boys at QPR probably should look to get a move away in January. You still feel that's the same for them?
Yeah, look, Daniel Benny last year got more game time when he was younger, leading into the Asia Cup and the World Cup itself, and all of a sudden he's only just found himself back on the bench. Look, I think with QPR mid-table, this seems to be very settled kind of a side. I can't see him getting any game time soon. We know there's a few Aussies on the QPR books, but why not? The only thing is though, I challenge is they're still young. They're at that age, but I still want to see them play football. I think they've got something to offer somewhere. So whether that's a league down even for the age profile, like I don't mind players going to league down if they're at that age that they're at, like 20 and 19, like that makes sense. Not like Joe Gaggi is like we talked about before, that was 25 and looking at League One. That's not the profile I'm looking for. But yeah, I just think that why not drop down to League One and just get 15, 20 games? Like it won't hurt them, and they'll definitely get more game time where they are. They can't just be in the reserves or in the under 18s at championship level. I don't think that's a good environment, but many people would debate that.
All right, mate, let's go to League One. Alex Robertson continues to perform well, scored the winner in Cardiff's 1-0 win over Exeter. He mentioned in his post-match interview that he's played under his current manager at Man City and just knew the type of style he wanted to play, and he's really enjoying his football at the moment. And there's a few comments on social media that I want to share with you, mate, that just a few of the fans absolutely loving Alex Robertson. So first one, Alex Robertson is a joke at this level, being League One. Keep him fit, and that's a hell of a player to have. Alex Robinson showing why he's the best midfielder in the league. Wasn't the best, but a massive 3 points. Alex Robinson is the best player in the league. Alex Robinson, some player need to keep hold of him next month, being obviously the January transfer window. So yeah, plenty of Cardiff fans are, as I've mentioned before, kind of surprised that they've got a player of this quality playing at this level. But as we've said before, mate, if he wants to get himself back in that Socceroos squad, he really needs to thrive at that League One level. But it looks like he's really coming into that at the moment.
Yeah, he showed the form last year, didn't he? But Cardiff's on the right track as well. Like, I know they're talking about holding on to him, but if they keep at this rate, they'll be in the championship, no worries, next year. So that's a good platform for Robertson to be performing on and to keep continuous development. I don't see a problem with that. So I think Cardiff's been the Premier League we've seen before. So I know they've been out of the wilderness for a little while, but hasn't been that long. So I think Cardiff, they're dominating League One. Obviously, they're way too good for this level. But the championship's a good platform for him, and that's where he probably, gets a good 12 months behind him, and then you can probably gauge where he needs to go next. I think Carter fans should just be grateful for him and, yeah, keep playing week in, week out, and wait till next year. And hopefully he can really, I think, about that right age profile too, don't you think? Going to the championship next year, probably starting to hit his peak. And I think that's where he can really try to enforce himself into the championship and see where he goes from there.
Yeah, it's a really good point in terms of, if Cardiff are 3/4 of the way through the season and they're all but going up, why not wait it out? Because as I said before, he's with the manager that he's worked with before, and obviously he's enjoying himself. So yeah, why risk going to another club in the championship, for instance? Why not just go up with the club that you're with, and then see what you can do in the championship, and make a decision, as I said, because it's probably about 23 ish at the moment. So yeah, it's good. Good. He's got a lot of football behind him, even though he's got some injuries. So yeah, it's a good platform to launch from there. All right, let's finish off in League One. We're going to have two players sent off and go down 2-1 to Bradford, with Rafael Borges Rodriguez getting 90 minutes and Tyrese Francois getting 18 minutes off the bench. All right. You mentioned before Joe Gauchi's still on the bench in League One for Port Vale. They got hammered 5-0. So we may see a keeper change. We may not, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Well, I texted you this morning. He's probably glad he was on the bench because they didn't play well at all, and they're still last. So, yeah, things aren't looking good there for Joe. But anyway, like you said, lots more games ahead, and we'll see what happens after a 5-0 drubbing. All right, let's go up to Scotland where it's all happening. We've got a great league happening up there and a lot of Aussies involved. Unfortunately, though, Hearts suffered their second loss of the season, going down 3-2 away to the Hibs, and unfortunately they were down 3-0 at one stage in the 48th minute. For a late surge, fell short, but our Aussie Cam Devlin, on the other hand, got on the score sheet in the 89th minute. He doesn't find the back of the net very often, but Cammy Devlin gets on the goals in the 89th minute, but it was all too late and too short as they fell 3-2. That brings, unfortunately, Celtic right back into the league title, but it's a race that's on. For the other Aussies, for Hibs, we can't forget that we've got a great couple of competitors ourselves at Hibs, and Airedale and played a full game. Captain Martin Boyle obviously had the captaincy this morning, and they were the successful ones in an all-Aussie battle, taking the spoils. Over in the other game, we had Livingston. They go down 4-2 to Celtic. Ryan McGowan returns after suspension, and Teddy Yangi starts, which was a good sign. But unfortunately, Livingston go down 4-2 and remain bottom with only just one win this season. Motherwell's 10-match unbeaten run as well has come to an end. So the sequences are all falling over in the end of Christmas, and they go down 1-0 to Rangers in a tough game. Motherwell denied a penalty, though, in second half stoppage time, so a bit debatable there, but Johnny Katrumba starts, and Stam Tavalopoulos and Oscar Priestman come off the bench, again, consistently coming off the bench for Motherwell, but unfortunately, no luck this time as they were denied that penalty. Aberdeen drew 1-1 with Dundee United. Zach Sabsford starts for Dundee United. Nicholas Milanovic comes off the bench for Aberdeen as they share the spoils in another all-Aussie clash. Over in Belgium, Chief, we've got some exciting news as Ryan Teague gets his first minutes with KV Mechelen since September. After his, it's almost like we've forgotten all about him, haven't we? After his first match day squad appearance in months during the week. So good to see Ryan Teague back in Europe and playing. All right, Chief, that's
you say minutes. He got 1 minute off the bench, but
better than
they all
nothing.
count, right?
They all count.
But like you're right, like he's been just out of the picture for so long, and obviously not in the Socceroos frame anymore. So yeah, hopefully there's some positive signs ahead for him. He can start to build those minutes again.
Yep, it definitely impacts him though, doesn't it? And like you said, because of these moves, if you don't make the right move, it has some catastrophic decisions, doesn't it? When you don't get it right, as we've seen with a couple of Socceroos that were in the picture 12 months ago, but not in the picture at the moment. All right, Chief, that's a wrap of obviously the overseas news. Obviously, a lot of countries have got the winter break and a few have wrapped up. So let's go back home to the A-League. And before we start, Chief, I'd just like to say there's been a hat trick as we record tonight. And would you believe it? The Lion is back roaring as Perth lead 3-0 over Melbourne City, and that's only with 2 minutes to go. So the Lion is roaring in Melbourne City tonight.
Tom Lawrence with the hat trick there, the Welshman. So I watched a bit of it before we started recording, and Perth were actually looking pretty good. Just sat in, and we're getting Melbourne City on the break. Bajic and Atkinson were inverting there, and they were taking advantage of that in the wider positions. And yeah, Tom Lawrence definitely looks a player. Once he's fit and firing, I think Perth are on the right path there. But yeah, almost finishing that one. But what a result for Perth Glory on the road. They're certainly heading in the right direction under Adam Griffiths.
Yep, and before we obviously go through, we have to go all the way back to Friday night where, Chief, what about this game? Was this the game of the year?
Well, I think it probably was, mate. Maybe it's got to be one of the best A-League games ever. Like in terms of pure entertainment, MacArthur edged Newcastle 5-4 in a 9-goal thriller, but the action started even before kickoff. Daniel Wilmering goes down in the warm-up for the Jets, and then Harry Politidis goes off 7 minutes into the game. He was seen on crutches later in the game, so hopefully Harry's not too bad. He's been really good for MacArthur this season. Bernardo Oliveira opened the scoring, timing his run perfectly to get onto a beautiful ball from Liam Rose and bravely poking the ball past Elinov to open the scoring. Eli Adams then sent the crowd crazy with one of the best goals I've ever seen in A-League history. His 30-yard free kick dipped and swerved into the net. I mean, that goal was absolutely amazing, and you could see that in any of the top leagues all around the world. I don't think I'm being biased towards the A-League. That was an absolute screamer, mate.
Oh, I loved it. Like you said, it's a worldie, and he's absolutely got a peach of a left foot, hasn't he? What a shot! And like you said, rightly so, sent the crowd in absolute nuts, and it really got him going, didn't it? After that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but then MacArthur hit back through Dean Bosniak, giving the Bulls a lead again. Dylan saves pretty much bounced off his knee and went in just before half time. 3 minutes in the second half, Clayton Taylor, he won possession before driving in the Bulls' defence and rifled the ball into the roof of the net to make it 2-2. Bosniak then finished from close range for his second, putting the Bulls up again before Harry Sawyer pounced on a medallion of mistake to give the Bulls a 4-2 lead. Gave one of the Jets ball kids a ride as part of the celebration. I think Big Harry was a Jet in his mind, and probably the ball boy's never been on a bigger jet in his life. So yeah, a bit of fun from Harry Sawyer. He's a bit of a character in the league, which is great to see. The Jets then made a comeback.
Oh, absolutely, and they kept on coming.
Yeah, the Jets then made a comeback by their substitute, Xavier Bertoncello, volleying home for his second in as many games. And then Ben Gibson bundled one home to make it 4-4. The Jets did look the most likely team to go on and win, putting plenty of pressure on the MacArthur goal. But deep into stoppage time, Anthony Caceres played a beautiful pass with the outside of his right foot, finding Luke Vickery, who composed himself and powered past Delianov. The Jets claimed there was a foul by Harry Sawyer, but the goal stood and the Bulls won. An absolute thriller. I just on the final goal, watching it live, I thought it might have been pulled back for that foul, but from my perspective, when I looked it back, both players had hold of each other's shirt, and it was probably just the end of it where Sawyer was holding the defender's shirt that made it look worse. But I think there probably wasn't enough there to overturn it. It either had to be picked up live. But yeah, what a week for the Bulls, picking up 7 points from their 3 games in a week, and they move into the top 6.
Yep, they've certainly done well. I obviously getting that midweek draw with City and yeah, going away to Newcastle, I thought they might struggle, obviously playing midweek, but they've mastered it, haven't they, in Asia, and that now they've done it in the A-League, and they're really starting to gain some momentum. And with Duke signing as well, it's just going to be big news for the club. The Jets still remain 7th, having scored the most goals, but it conceded the most goals in the league. They fixed that part of the game, Chief, and they're going to be right up there. But that inconsistency has come back to haunt them, especially defensive transition. Again, like we said, way too open and getting exposed. But certainly worth the value for the dollar, isn't it, up there with the excitement that they play? It was very controversial at the end with obviously that free kick, whether it gone either way, and obviously a few heated moments after the match. But that's football. The referee had a chance to make the decision. Like you said, VAR can't review that. It's 50-50, isn't it? Like it's not clear and concise. But, the referee was accountable for that decision. And he's decided, like you said, to play both advantage and because of the 50-50 challenge by going both ways. But Jets will be disappointed, and it's more emotionally disappointment because, they did all that hard work to get back in it. And unfortunately, they've dropped probably a crucial point considering the A-League table at the moment.
Yeah, they had a real chance to win this one because, as we've said, MacArthur coming off that midweek game against Melbourne City with the travel, and this was really the Newcastle Jets game to win in front of their home crowd and really wanting to continue their forward motion throughout this league. But yeah, a little blip for the Jets, and yeah, Milligan will be wanting to iron out a little bit of those defensive frailties because yeah, going forward they're really good, but yeah, clearly you can see if they've scored the most but conceded the most as well. It's something that they want to shore up. But tell you what, you're guaranteed to get goals every time you watch the Jets play. That's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to our next game. When the lights are on, the Adelaide crowd is out, and don't they put on a show? With a massive crowd of 13,582, saw Adelaide snatch a late 3-2 win over Western Sydney Wanderers. And yes, Wanderers fans, you scored some goals, but unfortunately, your defence that has been strong all year let you down. So let's break it down. We've got Craig Goodwin, bang, rattled the woodwork early before it was his raking crossfield ball who found Yaya Duclay in space, who then teed up the young, high, prestigious talent Jovanovic, who rattled it home, his 4th goal of the season, and Duclay's 5th assist. A great start for Adelaide and put the crowd up and going and buzzing around that Highmarsh Stadium. The Wanderers then had a good spell of possession. Josh Smith's made several key saves for the Reds to take a 1-0 lead into half-time. The game came out in the second half. The Wanderers again, dominance continued in the second half. Heyman scoring for the Wanderers his first goal since the Sydney derby when it was deflected shot. 18-year-old Vinko Stanzic obviously gets the goal, but it was deflected. The Reds then made a triple change, which paid immediate dividends with Austin Abu flicking in a Craig Goodwin corner. Again, Craig Goodwin dangerous on these corners at near post, giving them the lead 2-1. Wanderers come back again, levelled the game through Brendan Borrello, a penalty awarded because of a late challenge by Vinko Stanzic on Angus Thurgate, and that made it 2-2. The Wanderers went and searched for a much-needed winner, but Josh Smits was too good, including tipping a Crave shot over the post. And then, deep in the stoppage time, Johnny Yole, the young under-20 World Cup and Asia Cup champion for the young Socceroos, who looked dangerous off the bench, popped up on the left, jinked inside and found the bottom corner for his first goal at Cooper's Stadium. The Reds go third with this win, while the Wanderers remain second last. Wow, that is not good. Pressure increasing on Sajic, but I'm sure he'll take it in his stride in this tight competition. What do you think of the game, Chief? Another cracker for Adelaide.
Yeah, I've been pretty critical of the Wanderers throughout the season, but I actually thought they were half decent in this one. If not for Josh Smith, they definitely could have had a couple of goals. Yeah, definitely they had large periods of the game, particularly the end of the first half and into the second half, where they were quite dominant. And look, it's just their problem that they just can't convert these chances. Partly it was shooting from poor positions in this game. They were well up in the shots at goal count, not getting too many of them on target. But yeah, Josh Smith did have an outstanding game in goal for the Reds as well. So yeah, I think look, if they can continue to play like that each week, I think look, their problem is still that they don't have a clinical striker. They were missing Costa Barbarouses in this one. He'd scored half of their goals leading into this game, so that was obviously a big out. Not that he's been particularly prolific throughout the season either, but look, it just continues to be their problem. And both Borello and Sturgis interviewed post game, couldn't really say much. Sturgis actually said, "Well, we're still one of the best teams in the league as far as he's concerned." And Brandon Borello was a bit like same old story. They keep plugging away, they keep creating chances, but they just can't get the ball in the back of the net. And then Adelaide on the other side, we know they're so strong at home, and what an amazing crowd that was a couple of days after Christmas, at Cooper Stadium. Geez, they turn out in their numbers all the time, Adelaide. And actually, I wanted to mention that Josh Smith was meant to interview post game, and the question was asked about this crowd and this stadium compared to his experience playing over in Europe, and he said it's the perfect model of this kind of stadium size and the crowd really on top and everything like that. So I think we were saying before about Sydney FC and their stadiums and that kind of thing, but it just shows you what an atmosphere that can create. When that Johnny Yole goal went in, the place went ballistic, and I just don't think you get that in a big stadium. You'd still feel it, but yeah, with the crowd on top of you and it all closed in, and wouldn't have been many spare seats in the house last night. But I think it's a model that can work for many clubs if they wanted to go down that path. But yeah, credit to the Adelaide fans for turning out, and I think Adelaide won 4 of their 5 home games this season, so they're rewarding the fans for their loyalty as well.
Yeah, love their football over there, don't they? They consistently show up. One of the best averages in the A-League. So well done, Adelaide. And yeah, really doing well and overachieving probably a little bit than what we expected. You did say they would start well, but their home form's keeping up there. And they did get their first away win over Perth too. So good signs for Adelaide there at the moment. All right, we've just seen Melbourne City versus Perth wrap up with Perth winning 3-1. Melbourne Naboot scored a late goal, but Tommy Lawrence scored the hat-trick that you said. He has been capped for Manchester United, only the one cap, and he is being capped for Wales 23 times for 3 goals. Prolific team member of Derby County with 170 appearances and Rangers 46 appearances. Showing his class tonight. Looks like Melbourne City dominated the possession and play in possession, but Tom Lawrence was just too smart and too good and has brought down Melbourne City with his Perth Glory teammates. So well done to Perth. They're both equal now on 13 points. So massive win there for Perth and Melbourne City. Like you said, they had their Champions League out of the way now just to focus on A-League, and it just hasn't got off to a good start. But no doubt they'll bounce back with their squad.
That was their 3rd of 7 home games that they've got in a row. So they lost the Melbourne Derby, drew with Macarthur, and now they've lost this one as well. So, not many people would have seen that coming for sure.
The Lion would have, Chief, the Lion, the Royal Man. Hey? He's on fire. He'd be loving that. Going back now, I think Perth have got a couple of home games now, so that's good. All right, let's turn our attention to the Ninja A-League Women, Chief.
Yep, Adelaide United picked up their 2nd win of the season with a 5-2 win over last place Wanderers. Tell you what, the Adelaide fans got plenty of value for money. in those couple of games with 2 wins and 12 goals across the 2 games that they watched. Aaron Healy got a double in this one. One in particular was a very nice turn and put it into the top corner. Wanderers struggling in both the men's and women's competition. So we mentioned the men's team second last, the women's team running dead last. So yeah, plenty of pressure on that club as a whole, who have much bigger aspirations than where they are currently at the moment. The second game of the round was Melbourne Victory, who scored 3 goals in second half stoppage time to grab a 3-3 draw with the Mariners. The Mariners were cruising at 3-0 heading into stoppage time, and then bang, 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 3-3, Melbourne Victory scrape a point. Annalise Rasmussen scores a double for the Mariners. Peter Trimmis, if you haven't seen this one, search it out in the highlights. But Peter Trimmis scored an absolute worldie from about 35 yards, contender for goal of the season for sure. For Melbourne Victory, Rihanna Polisiana scores to go equal top with teammate Kennedy White in the Golden Boot race. Well, that was before Melbourne City played earlier today with 6 goals each. The next game, Sienna Dale comes off the bench to secure 3 points for Canberra United. Canberra absolutely dominated this one, had 32 shots to 10 with Anna Leet in goals for the Jets, making 10 saves. Canberra now 6 games unbeaten on a nice little run there and at the top of the table. The Jets remain 5th with some tricky fixtures coming up. And what about this result earlier today, Mopper? Holly McNamara, her hat-trick, sees City pass Perth 3-1. The Matildas side, too much speed and quality as she jumps to the top of the Golden Boot standings with 7 goals from just 6 games. City up to 3rd with plenty of games in hand. Looking very, very ominous for the opposition, mate. They had all these games in hand because of that Asian Champions League little group that they played. And yeah, with games in hand, and they're breathing down the necks of Melbourne Victory and Canberra United. And I can see them catching them in the next couple of weeks with the games they've got to make up. So Holly McNamara in particular, fit and firing, is a good sign for the Matildas ahead of the Asian Cup, but for Melbourne City in the shorter term as well. And Perth sit 8th in the league.
Yeah, she's too good for this league, Chief. And look, she'll get a good run in. Lucky they've got Asia as well. I think she needs that extra competition. And I know they've got a bit of a break before they meet up again because the group stage was played all at once. But yeah, McNamara for Asia Cup. What a great asset for the Matildas to bring her on at some point during the game or even start maybe. She's definitely got a lot of qualities and look forward to seeing her in March when the Matildas kick off. She'll definitely be in the squad and an exciting player to really, I think next year will be a good, probably building step for her to go to the next level. I think she's got a lot more to offer, and she's patiently, in Melbourne City at the moment, chasing down, looking for Asian Champions League glory with the Matildas, but also probably Asian Champions League glory for Melbourne City that avoided them in that final last year. So big things ahead, I think, for Holly McNamara in new 2026. But she's definitely capped off a good year after a horror injury run. She's looking fit and firing, and looks to just continue to build on fantastic career.
Yeah, that speed in particular that I noticed for her goals, those balls in behind the defenders absolutely had no chance. And I think for the Matildas, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her line up on that right in that position we've seen Hayley Razzo occupy so much. Don't necessarily see her starting in front of Sam Kerr, although she may play up there and with some rotation. But yeah, I could see her playing off that right as a starter if Joe Montemayor wants to go that way. But certainly a talented player, and I think this may well be the last season we see her in the Australian domestic competition. It's awards time. So let's go through what we've selected. We're going to start with the top 5 Australian football moments in 2025. But we can't do this without some honourable mentions because it's been such a great year for Australian football. Do you want to take us through the ones that didn't quite make the top 5 list?
Well, let's start with the one of the most recent victories, and that's Kevin Muscat, back-to-back winners in China. What a super performance for Kevin Muscat. A lot of interest in his coaching pedigree. but he's been in China after his move from Yokohama, and he's gone back to back. What a super performance, and very unlucky not to be in the top five, but it just goes to show what great coaching pedigree we've got, and he's definitely, they compare him with Ange's journey, but I think he's leading his own journey and doing a very smart job. I think he's learned a lot off Ange, and they have a great relationship. Would have definitely got some advice, but what a super moment for an Australian winning another Asia title over there in China. This is a special moment. This one, Iva Luik, what a champion! That she become the Swedish champion at 40 years of age, Chief. They were in a tight ding dong battle with a couple of other Aussies, but what a story! At 40 years of age, being Swedish champion, a very special moment and one for her to savour. We can't forget too some nominations. Steph Catley was Ballon d'Or nomination. What a great respect for one of our great leaders and in the Matildas, and what a great player Steph Catley is. Obviously, her Arsenal side winning Champions League and being recognised, obviously, for her form in Arsenal as well for in the Women's Super League, getting a Ballon d'Or nomination. It's not often you see those nominations for our Aussies, so it just goes to show how highly rated she is. Patrick Gazbek, Open Cup winner for Nashville. What a great victory that was too in the Cup just before the Major League Finals in America. Another super performance. Our recent Cup winner, Cam Backus, unfortunately got a nasty injury, who's off for 3 months, but with a hamstring. But we can't that League Cup win from St Mirren over all the odds against Celtic 3-1 in a fantastic story for all football fans. St Mirren's are probably still partying on for that League Cup win, and that gets them into Europe as well. And well done to Bacchus, a super moment. Melbourne City, we can't forget, women premiers and Asian Champions League finalists. Well, they were devastated when they just lost that final, but credit to them. They're a great team and great form, and they've built again this year, and they're going for it again. But women premiers, they definitely dominated the league, didn't they? Unfortunately, come unstuck in the finals, but with the Ninja A League, but Asian Champions League finalist, who could forget what a great year they've had? You can't go past Auckland FC too. First season premiers, and not only first season premiers, they were dominant in all fashions. Not just on the field, but you got to say off the pitch as well. The way that club has built and connected with the community, you got to give huge credit to Auckland FC. The crowds that they're pulling, the ownership, all the way through in that community. It's a great story, and one that can be definitely. You always look at the pioneers, and they're definitely leading the way, aren't they, in the way to run a club. So well done to Auckland FC. We can't forget also too Mark Schwarzer, inducted in the Sports Australia's Hall of Fame on the year of the 20-year anniversary of 2005 as well, for obviously the Australia versus Uruguay game that was well documented, well celebrated, the 20-year celebration. So well done to Mark Schwarzer in his career, and now doing a lot of broadcasting and a lot of podcasting in Europe and in Australia as well. So great analysis and great recognition for a great iconic Australian sportsman. Gian Stennis and Nick D'Agostino recently wrapped up the Norwegian League, and that was another tight contest, wasn't it? Bodø Glent pushed them all away. Bodø Glent had a tough European qualifier, and they needed just them to drop one game, and they just dropped it with a few to go. And they definitely took advantage, and we've got another couple of players that are champions of the Norwegian League. So fantastic story that. And Mitch Duke won the Emperor's Cup. So all these great moments in Australian football, you can't go past. And I know it did make the top five, but they're huge moments in Australian football in 2025, and a lot to celebrate. And great to see such success from all of those players involved.
It's hard to believe, listening to you read out all those honours and nominations, that there's five better than that. But look, this is our opinion. We wanted to mention those that didn't quite make the cut. It is a pretty long list, but we wanted to make sure that those were mentioned. And I wouldn't be surprised if we've missed one or two in that mix as well, mate. But hopefully we haven't missed too many. But please let us know if you think we have. But here's our top five, mate. You ready to go?
Go far away, mate.
All right, now coming in at number 5, the Socceroos qualifying directly for their 6th straight FIFA World Cup after a very shaky start. Yes, those games against Bahrain and Indonesia under Graham Arnold's tenure seem a distant memory now after Popovic came in and steered the ship and got that win over China, got that draw against Japan, and from there I wouldn't say it was exactly smooth sailing, but we did enough. And with Bayach's goal against Japan in Perth, we were just about through. But then finished the job in Saudi Arabia, and look at the opportunity that has opened up for us in terms of lining up these friendlies and not having to go through the trickiness of Asian Cup or World Cup qualifying through Asia. So, yeah, 6th straight World Cup. Hard to believe after what was it, 32 years before 2006 that we made a World Cup. So we're certainly making a good habit of qualifying for the World Cup, and let's hope that continues for many years to come. Coming in number 4, the Australian Championship commences with South Melbourne ultimately being crowned the first ever champions. Such an important part of the domestic program in Australian football. Of course, we want it linked as part of the full pyramid and promotion and relegation, but I think it was an important first step in getting this done, and it was really well received. We had a great broadcaster in SBS. The fan attendance was really good across most of the games. The quality on the pitch was really great, and it led to a final that was well contested by South Melbourne and Marconi. But yeah, ultimately South Melbourne come out champions and well deserved. They were the best team across the whole Australian Championship and one of the real drivers for getting the competition up and running. Number 3, Matilda trio, Steph Catley, Caitlin Ford, and Kyra Cooney-Cross winning the UEFA Women's Champions League. What an achievement for these Matildas. Steph Catley played a huge part in this. We've mentioned several times with her shift into that left centre-back role as opposed to out wider, and what a big difference that made for the Arsenal team. So what a huge achievement that was, and then they've ended up going pretty well in the defence of that title this season. So who knows, we may even be looking at back-to-back Champions League winners for our Matildas at Arsenal. Number 2, the young Socceroos winning the Under-20 Asian Cup to qualify for the World Cup. Geez, mate, we were on the edge of our seats for just about this entire tournament. It was so important that these boys did well in this tournament, making the semi-finals, qualified them for the World Cup, and then that game against Japan. Unlike many games we've seen for the national teams playing against Japan, quite a dominant victory and a dominant performance. And it really did set them up for that final where they took out in a dramatic penalty shootout. Stephen Hall was the hero on that night, saving a couple of penalties. Mark Schwarzer-esque, if you don't mind me saying, but what a huge achievement that was. And it meant them going to the World Cup. They were in a tough group. They performed admirably, although the results didn't go their way, and they just missed out on qualifying for the next phase. But very promising signs ahead for this young group. And number 1, mate, I don't think there's going to be many surprises for our number 1 pick for the 2025 moment of the year in Australian football. It's Ange Postecoglou becoming the first Australian manager to win in Europe as Spurs win the Europa League. He was absolutely written off all throughout the season. The Spurs had a pretty horrible domestic season, but he mentioned post winning the Europa League that he made a conscious decision to put all the eggs in one basket to focus on the Europa League. They were injury ravaged all throughout the season. In the final, he played a pretty pragmatic style, which is a bit against what he principally does, but he got the job done. He always wins a trophy in his second season, and he delivered the first trophy for Spurs since 2008 and first trophy in Europe for, I think, about 40 years. So certainly whatever Spurs fans think of Ange Postecoglou after he was let go at the end of that season, he'll forever be a Europa League champion, and the man that broke the drought for Spurs with their trophies.
Yeah, well, he's the pioneer of coaching, isn't he? And well said in the top five, Chief. And got some, I know, other notables ones there that some of the younger Matildas teams won some tournaments throughout the year, and Tim Cahill got inducted into the Hall of Fame as well this year. So there's just so many great stories, isn't there? But who could, take away the number one? What a moment for Australian football to see one of our own lead across Europe and successfully beat the best of the best in European competition. They can say what they like about the competition, but to do it in the way he did with the resilience he had to show, and you can see now, I think he's probably getting more plaudits as normally what happens in these moments after the fact, because people are starting to really realise the difficulties, what he really faced, and this side's fully fit, pretty much fully fit, apart from a couple of players, and are struggling in the Premier League. And he did it with an absolute ravaged squad and had to back up week in, week out. And yeah, what a great story for Australian football to have someone in the pinnacle of European football. It doesn't get much better than that. And well done also too, like you said, the young Socceroos, the under-20s, absolute sensational job that they've done. There's a lot of excitement in this group, and played some of the best football I think we've seen, I think we'd agree on, that we've ever seen out of the Australian football younger teams. And it was Trevor Morgan done a fantastic job there. And look, to put the Matildas as all Arsenal winning the Champions League for the first time, like, wow. Aussies winning the Champions League, Aussies winning Europe, young Socceroos winning Asia Cups, Australian Championship. What a great story that is for Australian football to try to get that pyramid back, and Socceroos qualify for the World Cup. You couldn't ask for much more, could you, in Australian football?
Yeah, it was an exciting one, and people may debate the order, but it wasn't easy to come up with that top five and the order that we put in there. But yeah, plenty. Feel free to debate that, and we've got some reasoning for the order and what we picked. But yeah, there's always going to be debate, and that's why we love football as well. That everyone's got different opinions, but yeah, that's our moments of 2025. Plenty to celebrate. Let's go to our team of the year, Mopper. Do you want to run through from back to front?
Yeah, let's go straight in between the sticks. We can't go past what a year this has been for Patrick Beach. It's a real breakout year for him. A-League champion, Socceroo debut, and outstanding form for City, and not only in the A-League, but the Asian Champions League as well, and absolutely did himself all the favours in the world, didn't he, with another great performance with his debut for the Socceroos with plaudits aplomb. So I think he's been the most consistent, most outstanding keeper of the year. I think our other keepers have struggled with injury and consistency and picking up clubs, and I think Beach just takes the plum. At right back, Chief, how can you go past the electrifying young female Ellie Carpenter, French League champion, and hit the ground running at Chelsea, hasn't she? Uh, we looked at that move at the start of the year and thought, "Wow, what a move this is going to be!" And really, a Matilda's rock, isn't she? At the right back, she's just electrifying on all levels, and is performing well in the Champions League as well. So, no one can take that right back spot away. I think she's outstanding candidate for right back.
I think for
Centre
Ellie as well, that sometimes because she is so consistent and she has been doing it so well, people take that for granted as well because she performs at such a high level.
Yeah,
So, and look, even as you mentioned at Chelsea, we thought that Lucy Bronze might be a bit of a challenge in that position, but then we just see her move further forward because they see the importance of having her in the team.
absolutely. And what about this for a centre back pair? Circati, consistent form in Serie A. Very good for the Socceroos. Captain's armband this year and captain's armband now for his club in Parma. What an outstanding breakout year this bloke's had, and really enforcing himself in the Socceroos. You cannot go much better than playing at that level at higher standard in the Serie A. It's just been fantastic. He's just grown from strength to strength in all qualities of his game. And then right beside him, Chief, on the left-hand side of centre back, eh? What about our Ballon d'Or nominee, Steph Catley, Champions League winner, nominated for Ballon d'Or, Matilda's standing captain, PFA Women's Football of the Year. What a pedigree and what a leader she is. So not too many people are getting behind those two. And then on our left-hand side, left back, it's Mr. Fantastic for the Socceroos, Geordie Boss, and had some super moments for Feyenoord after making his move. Settled early, well within his big move for Feyenoord, breaking out in Champions League qualifiers, scoring goals, assists, scoring in the Dutch league, more assists, and unfortunately struck down by injury. But you can't go past also to his performance for the Socceroos, scoring against America. Just an absolute fantastic talent, isn't he? He's really come to another level, and very excited once he gets back fit what he can do in the future. And this World Cup is just in his prime time. So, what an exciting left and right back we've got there going forward with Circati and Catley anchoring the defence. All right, Chief, I'll hand you over to the midfield.
All right, in the defensive midfield, Aidan O'Neill gets first spot, Mr. Consistent. For the Socceroos, he's also fitted in seamlessly since his move to New York City in his first season in the MLS. He does come under criticism, particularly for the Socceroos, but when you look back and compare to other players in that position, I think he's been the most consistent throughout 2025. Kyra Cooney-Cross gets the other spot in holding midfield, although I know that you would like to see her further forward, mate. Champions League winner and now starting regularly for Arsenal, becoming a really key player for the Matildas. We know how influential she is, and look, at such a young age, 23, I think she is. She's just going to be a star domestically and for the Matildas for many years to come. You can see she's on a really hot streak of starting for Arsenal and having some big influences on the game since she's got a chance. So I think she's just going to go from strength to strength in 2026. And you called her for a breakout tournament for the Asian Cup next year, mate. And I think you're pretty spot on. I think we're going to see the best of Kyra Cooney-Cross in 2026. Out on the right, we're going to put Adrian Segacic, 17 goals and 4 assists in the calendar year. Don't forget what an exciting season he had for Sydney FC last season. It was used quite sparingly for Fugtale, but what an impact he had off the bench on several occasions. He scored 13 goals at 0.87 goals per 90 minutes for his time in 2025 at Sydney FC. So that's completely prolific from him. He had a strong start to Pompey with 2 goals and assists in his first 3 games. His game time and his output has dried up a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but I don't think that should go against him for what an outstanding first half he had to 2025. In the 10, we're going to put Alex Badalado, who was the Under-20 Asian Cup MVP. He was also Australia Cup winner with the Newcastle Jets and the AFC Men's Youth Player of the Year. So, yeah, outstanding plaudits all throughout 2025 for Alex Badalado. And we've seen what an excitement machine he is when he's on. And, yeah, he'll continue to perform very well for his team, the Newcastle Jets, and wouldn't be shocked if he's there and thereabouts for the Socceroos, but probably needs to uptick his form a little bit for the Jets. But a very, very good 2025 for Alex Badalado. Caitlin Ford is going to play off the left, obviously Champions League winner with Arsenal, had 6 goals and 2 assists across all competitions. Just such a solid player for the Matildas and for Arsenal throughout 2025. Leading the line, this was a bit of a talking point, wasn't it, mate? We weren't sure who was going to get the nod. We've had some good strikers, but do you want to announce who we've picked to lead the line?
Well, we've picked Zach Abbotsford because of his goal output, 13 goals and 6 assists in the calendar year, and contribution for his club, Dundee United, and obviously Western Sydney Wanderers. Unfortunately, he hasn't been picked in the Socceroos, but we don't want to discount that because of some of the key goals he's scored against some big clubs in Scotland, and it's really building. There's a couple of boys that are on level par, and we'll talk about them on the bench, but I think Zach Abbotsford probably could find himself the unluckiest player not to be picked for the Socceroos this year. But he's in our top 11 because we feel like he should be there, and his performances should be recognised, what he's doing in Scotland, scoring against some big clubs and doing a consistent job over there, and is having a fantastic breakout year in his first year in Europe. We also, too, Chief, we've got some very well-performed players on the bench.
Yep, first one is Gianni Stensnes, obviously champion there in Norway after he came back from his ACL injury. Cammy Devlin, regarded by some as the best player in Scotland this season, probably didn't make the starting 11 because he didn't have the same output at the back end of last season, but he's certainly been very good to start this domestic campaign. Keanu Bacchus, League Cup winner with St Mirren. And then we had Patrick Yazbek, 2025 Open Cup winner, and has become a bit of a regular with Socceroos. Mohamed Toure, he was probably the one we were debating for the striking position, 9 goals and 5 assists throughout 2025 for him, but really starting to break out as the main player for the Socceroos. Ivy Luik, mentioned before, Swedish champion. And what about this from Mary Fowler? She has been out since the 14th of April, but just shows you what good form she was in before she got injured. She had 5 goals and 7 assists up to the 14th of April. So I think she was in for a massive 2025 before she went down with injury. She already also had the PFA Young Women's Footballer of the Year and the PFA WSL Team of the Year. So, yeah, some great players on the bench who have unfortunately missed our 11. But, yeah, let us know who you would have picked and who you think might have been unlucky to miss out.
Okay, individually, we've got the Manager of the Year, Ange Postecoglou, obviously for his European efforts and been pioneering Australian football and coaching in general. The first Australian ever to win a European trophy. What an amazing story that is. We can't go past the Football of the Year for us as Steph Catley. As we said, Champions League winner, nominated for Ballon d'Or, Matildas standing captain, PFA Women's Football of the Year, and a great season for Arsenal. She's such a talent and such a pedigree in the highest regard for our Football of the Year. We believe she's been the most consistent and performed at all levels of Europe, club, and for the Matildas. The Young Footballer of the Year, we can't go past Alessandro Circati. He's been an absolute legend this year. He's captained his side, Captain Parma, for recognition for a young footballer at his age and playing the Serie A fantastic achievement. So they're our top 3: Manager, Football of the Year, and Young Football of the Year.
All right, that's our nomination. Oh, sorry, that's our award winners for 2025. As you can see, plenty to celebrate in Australian football in 2025. And I'm going to ask you the question, Mopper. What are you looking forward to in 2026?
It's the World Cup for the Socceroos, for the girls, the Matildas. They've got their Asia Cup. So hopefully 2 very successful tournaments. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing where Australian football lands with new CEO and see if there's much change going to happen in the new calendar year. And if there's obviously broadcast deal is going to be a big one for me. But I think overall, I think definitely it's a big year for our Socceroos and Matildas who are in 2 major tournaments. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think I agree with those as well. And I'll just add in plenty of our, probably too many to list, but plenty of our underage teams are playing in tournaments, particularly in the early part of 2026. So I think plenty to look forward to with those teams, plenty to get behind and look for some of those stars of the future. So yeah, it's going to be an absolutely massive 2026. As you mentioned, broadcast deals come up, new CEO of the APL as well. So yeah, very, very interesting times for Australian football, and let's hope there's plenty of positivity that comes out of it.
Yep, but overall, I think, Chief, we'd like to thank all the Australian football community and all Australian football fans for all their support during the year. And congratulations to all the players that we announced today and for everyone obviously challenging themselves in the sport. It's been a fantastic year, I believe, for the Australians when you reflect on it, overseas and domestically. And we just wish for all more good lines and stories next year so we can celebrate and follow the journey.
Yeah, as Mopper said, thank you everyone who listens to this podcast for your support throughout 2025. We've obviously started the podcast this year. We're loving doing it and we love the interaction that we have with everyone. We've got some exciting things planned for 2026 that we'll let everyone know in due course. But yeah, we're looking forward to taking the podcast to some different levels. And I think one of our mantras was to start with was to get some Australian football out there in the public eye, and I think we're trying to do that week by week, and we hope to do that more and more in 2026.
Well said, mate. And good luck to all your teams next year, and look forward to catching up with you again in the new year, Chief.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Last episode of 2025. Hope everyone had a good Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. We look forward to seeing you in 2026. In the meantime, enjoy your football.
All the best.